Communication tips. So it's crazy to me that two people can be speaking the same language, but they are constantly missing each other. It's no wonder why so many relationships don't survive. Hi, I'm Lacey. I work as a mental health counselor, and my goal for this channel is just to hopefully offer you something that can help you on your journey. Just like everything else that's worth doing in life, becoming a better communicator does take some effort, but the benefits far outweigh the costs. So what does communication entail exactly? Well, communication at its most basic level is the sending and receiving of messages. But it's not just one person receiving and one person sending. Both people have to be willing to send and receive. But it's not just about sending and receiving. It's about how you're sending and receiving these messages. Whenever I think of communication, I think of baseball. Two players on a team throw the ball back and forth to kind of warm up. And in order for the ball to be thrown back and forth smoothly, a lot has to happen. Each player has to make eye contact and give minimal cues, minimal behavioral cues to let the other person know that they're ready, alert, and willing to catch the ball. Each player has to have an open glove to receive the throw, and each throw has to be purposeful and thrown in a way that the other person can receive it. There's typically no looking away, turning backs, closing gloves, throwing wild throws, or throwing targeted, pointed throws that are unexpected, because this would defeat the whole purpose of trying to connect as teammates and to become better together and to build trust. Communication is kind of like this. It kind of takes a lot to do it well. The easier thing to do is to sometimes walk away, turn your back, send pointed messages, no messages at all, or refuse to listen. Being a better communicator takes a little bit more effort, but if you're interested, I'll share with you some tips. So the first thing is you have to choose to want to be a better communicator. You can't really be a better communicator unless you first decide that it's something that you want to do. Reasons to be a better communicator is it gets you in touch with your needs, you're building trust with another person, and it can also help build confidence. Number two, when you want to communicate something that's important to you, timing does matter sometimes. Sometimes we have a complaint and it's really bothering us, and we feel like the only way to stop feeling bothered is to tell the other person what we're feeling. We want to get it off our chests as quick as possible. But sometimes the timing's not great, and it can actually create a barrier. When we are focused on our own discomfort, we don't really consider what might be happening for the other person in that moment. So, for example, if something's bothering you and you decide to try to call or text someone while they're at work, it may not go that well. And that's because the timing is not great. I notice sometimes we subconsciously may choose the wrong time for two reasons that I can think of. One is maybe we don't really want to talk to the person in that moment, and we're kind of setting ourselves up to be maybe shut down. Number two is sometimes when we choose the wrong time, we're kind of reinforcing some of the beliefs that we have about another person. Like, I told you you never listen. Well, they can't listen because the timing's not right. Maybe put some thought into timing. Number three is choosing not to communicate verbally. And I've talked about this in previous videos and blog posts, sometimes we want other people to read our mind, so we don't verbalize what it is we're wanting or thinking, but we can't read each other's minds. And when you choose not to communicate something, you're kind of setting the other person up for failure because you have an expectation, but you're not letting them in on it. But we also are setting ourselves up for getting upset because a person's more likely to upset you if they don't know what you're wanting. Number 4 is coming in hot. We really want people to know what we're thinking and feeling sometimes. Sometimes we don't want to tell them, but sometimes we do. And we come in a little too hot sometimes. But when you begin a conversation and emotions are running high, that almost automatically creates a block in communication. And it's likely that not much will get accomplished. When two people are in their emotions, rational thinking goes out the window, and it's really just about wanting to send messages and nobody wants to receive. So this can happen too when our agenda is really just to blame and accuse and not really to come up with a solution. I know it's not easy, but letting your emotions kind of simmer down a little before you approach another person will help communication go a lot better because you can actually hear each other out and there is no attacking and defensiveness. Number 5 is accusing. Have you ever noticed that when you use the word you, when you're trying to talk to a person, that they automatically become defensive? When you enter a conversation and you're already pointing the finger, like, you aren't doing this, you never do this, you are so, the other person will almost immediately feel attacked and accused, especially if the tone of voice comes off angry, disappointed, even disgusted. You may have heard of I statements. When you use an I statement, you're taking responsibility for how you feel and you're taking the blame off the other person. So there is kind of a recipe to I statements. I feel blank because of blank, and you share what you thought it meant. Share how you feel. I felt angry. Then you share why. I felt angry because you didn't text me back. And then you share what it made you think or feel. I felt angry when you didn't text me back, and it made me feel like you didn't care. So it just helps to share how you're feeling, but in a more productive way, because you will be sending a message that the other person can receive. Tone of voice when sending your message. You could say the same thing to a person and say it in 2 different tones of voice, and it will have a different impact. If I go into a conversation and my tone of voice is angry, disappointed, disgusted, those are usually the big ones, or my intention feels off just by my tone, another person can feel that. So tone of voice can be a barrier to productive communication. What a lot of these things have in common are we are focused on how we feel in the moment and getting that out, getting that point across to the other person. A lot of times we're not necessarily interested in what they have to say. Number 7 is understanding. If you can commit to trying to understand where the other person's coming from, it can make a huge difference. If I go into a conversation and my goal is only to get my point across, then that can be a barrier to communication because it's not a two-way street, it's a one-way street. One way communicating is not communicating. If you can change your mentality to, okay, I really want to understand what's going on for this person, then the focus is now not so much on you, it's on the other person. And when that happens, they can sense it. The intention has shifted. The lines of communication have now been opened, and they're less likely to put their guard up. It's important to be aware of how you're sending your message, but it's also important to be aware of how you're receiving the message, if you're receiving it. If you notice yourself becoming defensive, that can be a block. And sometimes when a person shares a complaint with you and you don't receive it, or let them know that you received it, they are likely to repeat themselves again and again. I'm sure you've experienced this. Maybe you're the one repeating yourself. It's kind of like if a person sends you a message and you don't let them know that you've received it, it creates a loop that doesn't close. And the person will continue to repeat themselves in their complaint. And a way to kind of close the loop is to repeat back to them what they said. For example, you might say, "You feel angry when I don't text you back." And if the person says yes or exactly, then you have closed the loop. When you close the loop, because I do this with my kids too, they might ask me for stuff over and over and over again, and I'm not letting them know that I received the message, so they repeat themselves. But if I say, "You want a cookie?" and they say yes, then I can say, "Not today." You don't have to agree with what the other person is sharing with you. But if you can acknowledge what they're saying, you might even see them relax a little bit, because a lot of times people are just wanting to be acknowledged and heard. Number 9 is kind of a hard one. It's to let go of pride. Pride is a huge barrier to communication. If we can't listen and we choose to defend, it's not really communicating. If our goal is to be right about everything, we will struggle with communication, because it's not realistic to think that we are right all the time. If you're willing to put your pride aside and choose to really listen and understand what another person's saying, there may be some truth in there, which I have noticed there is a lot of truth in what other people share with me. You don't have to like it, but there is truth to it. This truth that other people are sharing with you could be helpful to your growth if that is a goal. Practicing putting your pride aside, it's kind of recognizing where your priorities are. Is your priority to be right all the time, or is your priority to have a good relationship? And number 10 is just continuing to learn from your mistakes, because we can't become good communicators overnight. It's going to take trying and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. You might do really good one day, you might make a mistake the next. You just have to be willing to keep trying, because over time it does get easier. Let's say, for instance, you enter a conversation and your tone of voice is off and you notice it. That might be an opportunity in the moment to say, "Okay, I recognize I'm a little heated," and you can begin to kind of calm yourself down in that moment. Put your weapons down. So it's not about becoming the perfect communicator. It's just a willingness to try and get better, because the benefits greatly outweigh the costs. And the alternative is just to continue to struggle, which I don't want to do that. Communicating is hard, but becoming a better communicator is possible. Just start trying, and if you make a mistake, just be willing to learn from it. And it's all about collecting data to use for the next interaction. But of course, it's always up to you. Thank you so much for watching.